had time to present their own case. They received the information in November. It went over Christmas and New Year, and we felt that was a reasonable request. So the report goes through as is with the single amendment to remove 63 Thompson Road for further consideration, and that can be dealt with in 1 or 2 months' time. But the building itself is quite interesting. On a
I'll
very
just get a
large
seconder
block.
before we go much further. Councillor Sullivan, continue. Oh, really? I thought you were just embarking on quite a...
I was introducing the item.
Okay. I was just getting some looks from the officers that a seconder might be a handy thing at some point. Right, Councillor Sullivan, did you want to speak at all on that? Right, so I think that's fairly clear. Is there any other further discussion on that one? Okay, all those in favour? Against? We're all good. Great, so PC item 13 is in your agenda. The recommendation is printed on page 71. 13, yep, so I'm just saying it's printed on on page 71. So Councillor Jones, did you want to move that one?
Yeah, this is our response to the Covenant look at short stay tourism in Western Australia, so I'll move that the report.
Seconder? Yep. Councillor Lang? Any discussion? Councillor Lang?
Just a quick comment. I touched on it last week. I thought the staff did a really good job in highlighting the key issues with this proposal from the state government. With Airbnb now being such an important gap between a rental and a hotel, it's a real niche in the market that affords emergency accommodation, and also it's really important for tourism. And the proposal has been put forward at the 60-day maximum, it would wipe out the industry, I think. So the staff have picked up on that and made those notes and recommendations. I think they've done a great job. So thanks to the team for that one.
Members, any further comment? I'll put that one to a vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous. That brings us to the end of planning and into FPOL. Councillor Archibald, do you want to move any of the FPOL items or throw to me? Okay, so I'll move FPOL item 9, which is the North Fremantle Bowling Club, expressions of interest criteria. Seconder for that one, Councillor Mofflin. Any discussion? Councillor Pemberton, thanks.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the officers for the time that's been taken and the thought that's gone into this as well. I think it's a good basis on which we can build for other facilities as well. Obviously, there has been a lot of concern around the utilisation or lack thereof of the North Fremantle Bowls Club, which of course is actually separate to the cricket club, nothing to do with the cricket club, not even on the same site. But you know, this is a space that a lot of community members have been wanting to use and have currently been unable to do so under the current structure. So I think this is a really positive step and way forward, where we're creating really clear kind of guidelines around the expectations of whoever has control of this facility, and that it is actually utilised more widely by the members of the community who want to use it. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Groom.
Yeah, Again, I appreciate the work and I know the intent, and we look forward to a great outcome. I have been concerned since seeing this item on the FPOL agenda about the 60%, and I know we've had questions at an IEM about kind of what that means. I think the kind of question of at least clarifying that means time, not area, would probably be useful amendment. And I'm also concerned that, we couldn't expect that from the beginning of someone taking over facility like this. And I wonder whether it warrants a minor amendment, requiring that they have a plan to work towards achieving utilisation for 60% over the time within the first year, or some such kind of goal like that, because any community or other group that tries to build up the kind of usage we are envisaging in these criteria, it won't happen overnight, and we need to be committing to be on that journey.
Might be useful if we just get some officer comment at this point, because we did talk about this quite a lot at FPOL as well. I think it's a good measure, but how we measure it and when.
Thank you. So yes, it would make sense to just clarify that utilisation is about time that the facility is used rather than portions of the facility being used. It definitely makes sense to build in some wording around how we can work up to a 60% utilisation for sure. And obviously from day one, you're not going to achieve 60%, but as long as there's a plan in place and an intent, and then we can come back and check that, say after 12 months, and we're able to audit it in a measurable way, then yeah, that's fine.
Councillor Archibald, did you want to?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering if we might just move a very minor amendment to Part A, which just says equal or greater than 60% of the time in any normal week. That would take account of Christmas being not a normal week, or in any full week, something like that.
So perhaps I can ask the officer to draft up some minor amendments to point A that maybe first talk to developing a plan to work towards achieving an ongoing utilisation of the facility that is equal to or greater than 60% of the time of any normal week. Something along those lines. So we'll just work that up. Yeah. Councillor Pemberton, did you have a suggestion?
I guess I wondered whether the reference to a normal week was necessary, but either way, I just thought if it was clear about like within 6 months of taking control or within 12 months of operation, something like that. There's a bit of a window of opportunity pointed to.
Yep. Yep. Okay, well, we'll just get something drafted up there. I mean, I think taking out, Councillor, I'm sorry, speaking from the chair, so I can maybe slip into committee a little bit. That any normal week also probably gives us a bit of wiggle room around COVID potential lockdowns and other things like that. So I think if we were measuring them after a period where they'd only perhaps had one normal week out of 10, it would be fair to take that into consideration. We'll just wait for that to come on the screen. Did anyone want to comment on this item more broadly while we're working on that amendment? Councillor Moughlin?
Yeah, I suppose just the question in regards to the working up to the 60%, because all we're saying here is that we're seeking proposals that will be able to provide that. I just don't know if that's actually creating additional complication in there, rather than just saying, yeah, we're potential future users that can demonstrate that they are going to have 60% usage, rather than saying put a plan together. We may find ourselves 12 months down the track and they haven't got 60% and they're never going to achieve it. So I'd actually prefer to be putting that harder line there at the beginning. And of course, it's always an aspiration for them to be able to achieve it. And yeah, I would almost think that the second part as well, in terms of is made accessible to the broader community. We know that's not going to be accessible to the broader community necessarily on day one either. That's going to be an ongoing process. So for me, I would be more than happy to just keep it as is rather than putting an additional plan together, because I would have thought, and maybe it's a question to staff, is whether there is some discretion in the work that staff do in terms of assessing the EOI and looking at how that 60% would be achieved. So can I just get a response from staff on that?
Yeah, so we'll get a comment on that, and I'll just note the current wording is up on the screen of the proposed amendment.
Sorry.
What happened? Just check it out.
Through the mayor. So given its criteria and it's going through an assessment process, we would assess against the criteria more so than necessarily the criteria needing to be achieved at that given point. So if you had a number of submissions that came close to some or all of the criteria, we would look for the submissions that got the closest to that criteria, and then we could continue to have a conversation with what we would identify as our preferred proponent moving forward.
Yep. Councillor Sullivan.
Sorry, I jumped in. Sorry. Just a question regarding that. I mean, obviously, this is an EOI that might end up in either a lease or a license. And so these matters, you know, if they, with our policy, the question would be, if they can very clearly demonstrate 60% of the hours of usage would be used by this organisation or the organisation, then they would probably qualify for a lease. If they can't demonstrate that, our policy would probably suggest they qualify for a license, or we might even consider some other arrangement. Is that where the process is heading? And so do we need to be outrageously worried about what's, you know, in the wording?
Oh dear.
This one,
Just keep going. Try all the mics.
Thank you.
Oh no, that one's working. Now you've got two.
Depending on, I guess, the quality of the submission we achieved and the level to which they meet the criteria, we can consider a different mechanism for making it available, whether it's a management agreement or a license or a lease. That also depends on the period of time we would make it available to them, and also the terms that they have proposed as part of their submission too. I guess the intent of this criteria is to put forward the best possible use of the facility that the working group has determined. And it may be that if we are unable to find a proponent who can achieve this criteria, the option you could have an option to go back to the drawing board and relook at how the facility is used.
Councillor Pemberton, did you want to speak further?
Speak to the amendment, yeah?
Yep.
That's what we're doing.
We need to probably move and second it. So are you moving the amendment as drafted at point A on the screen?
I am, yes.
Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And Councillor Pemberton?
Talking about amendment to part A.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. And Councillor Pemberton, you wanted to second or speak to that?
I'm happy to second it and speak to it.
Great, go for it.
Okay. Having said that I would second it, I actually don't support it with the first section in there. So I think it overly complicates it. I think what the clarification that is useful and valuable at this point in time is simply saying that, you know, what we mean by 60% is of the time and within a period of time. However, and it's kind of been alluded to in what a couple of councillors and the officers have said, which is that the development of the plan is what you would want to see at the point of negotiating a lease. I don't think we want to see it in the EOI, and I think what's more important in the EOI stage is that we want them to be able to demonstrate that they will be able to utilise the space, rather than they can demonstrate that they can write a plan.
Can I ask the mover whether they would be comfortable to remove the words "the development of a plan to woods"?
Yes, I think that came into the debate.
Yep, all good. So
we'll. So I'm happy to say the ability to demonstrate ongoing utilisation of the facility. That's fine with me.
Okay, so the amendment now reads 60% of the time within. Hang on, 60% of the time within 12 months of operation. You're comfortable with that? Okay. Councillors, on the amendment, we're all good. I'm going to move we've moved, seconded the amendment. I'm going to put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? And any against? So that's Councillor Kamada against, Councillor Vusic against the amendment. A bit confused.
Can I speak as?
Do you want to speak to the amendment?
As to why I'm against it, or
not after you've voted.
No,
but maybe if you were speaking to the amended
yeah,
recommendation, you could allude to that. Okay, so that's carried. So we're now back to debating the officer's recommendation as amended. Councillor Kamada, did you want to speak?
No, it's just more the reason I didn't put my hand up. It's just more a clarification of the 60%. I know we're talking time, but 60%, is that like 14 and a half hours a day? I mean, how do we define exactly? I know it's, yeah, we're sort of clutching at straws here and it's common sense approach, but I still am confused about that and exactly what we mean.
I might just go back to the acting director with his many microphones to clarify that, because it was quite a discussion at FPOL.
Through the mayor. So the way we would consider 60% is a half day. So yeah, that's what the half day refers to. So it's a measurement of time. So we wouldn't expect someone to utilise the building the entire day, every single day of the year, but a half day is a more reasonable consideration. And that was in the original.
Did anyone want to speak further on the amended officer's recommendation? I'll put that one to a vote. All those in favour? And again, all those in favour? Yep, everyone unanimous. Cool. Timing of hands got a bit out of whack there. Thank you. Good. So that's North Freya Bowling Club. I'm just going to see if there. So we've got an amendment for FPOL 22028. Perhaps I can just see if there's a few that we could do on block here. So if you just want to follow along. FPOL 7. Anyone wish to speak on FPOL 7? Nope. ARMC 1. Anyone? ARMC 2. It's an amended officer. Sorry, 2? 2. Great. And we need to do 3. Oh, could I do 3 on block with the amended officer's recommendation? Probably not. No. Okay. ARMC 4. ARMC 5. Nope. ARMC 6. RMC 7. Nope. RMC 8. Yes, Councillor Busy. Yep. And then we'll just quickly go to the C items. C2. C3. No, so we can do C3. C4. Okay, we can do C4. All right, so the items that I've got to move on block are 7, FL 7, ARMC 1, ARMC 5, ARMC 7, C1, C3, and C4. So I'll move those items, seconded by Councillor Moughlin. Sorry, yeah, you're right. I didn't intend C1 to be included, and we will. That's an amended officer's recommendation anyway. So has somebody captured the ones? Yep. So I'm gonna move those. We've got a seconder. Councillor Jones. All those in favour. Thank you. Rightio. This is going to bring us now to FPOL item 8. So I'll move the officer's recommendation and get it seconded by someone, Councillor Jones maybe. Looks like he wants to. And there's a proposed amendment by Councillor Sullivan. So I'd be fairly comfortable to go straight to that if people.
Yep, I'll move my amendment.
Seconded by Councillor Pemberton. Excellent.
Thank you. I just simply wanted to make sure there was a recognition of the importance of the heritage of the building that's part of this. I mean, obviously we're closing a street. That street is services almost nothing except a heritage cottage, which is the only cottage left from the port expansion. So all of that area that had been subdivided as as residential, including all of the Brack Street area, and much of where the port on the north side is now, was zoned for residential and cottages, and there were many, and this is the last one. And so its rarity value alone in that specific location is important. So this amendment is very much trying to just make sure that we as a council recognise that and continue to recognise that, because we have in the past, and that we also hopefully let the Port Authority have a little bit more of a message that it's not the sort of place that you just go, oh, well, would someone like to buy it and take it off our hands? Because that's not how you treat heritage properties. So I'll ask that we do that, and essentially it also acknowledges the passing of Mrs. Mullally, a household name in North Fremantle, and was very much a household name in this council for a very long time, because there were quite a few efforts to squeeze her out and quite a lot of community support to keep her safe. So I do acknowledge the battler that she was, and how amazing to live in that cottage so close to such a beautiful beach, even though you had an entire port industry running around you. So good on her for living a life that she wanted to live, and I just acknowledge her passing.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Before we go to Councillor Jones, we've got two different versions of Mrs. Mullally's name in the amendment. So I believe it's Carmel, not Carmen.
It is, yes.
Yeah, that's okay. So we might just, before we go much further, amend the second reference to say Carmel. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yes, I just want to just pass on that the Anne Former and Jerry McGill put out a press release this afternoon, which I think is relevant, and just a little more detail, that Bailey Street alone had 30 homes in it with 52 people living there, including many children, and every one except hers was resumed and demolished. In total, over 300 homes in North Fremantle were demolished to allow for port expansion, and they are, in addition, very supportive that the building should be retained in place and not offered to be taken away. So I'll just pass that on.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. And I think, on behalf of the council, we would extend, a recognition to Mrs. Mullally and everything that she became iconically known for as a memory in North Fremantle. I'm assuming there's nothing further on this amendment, so I'll put the amendment to vote. All those in favour? And back to the item as amended. Any further discussion? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Looks like unanimous on both fronts. Excellent. So that's going to bring us to Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor Groom, did you want to move these or whatever you like? Okay, so I will move the officer's recommendation for ARMC 2022, whatever it is, 2, seconded by Councillor Groom. Someone would wish to speak on this item? Councillor Groom, was that you? Yep. And then Councillor Archibald.
Yeah, just would like to bring to people's attention that the officers circulated an updated action report for this item and a couple of the other audit items. So at committee last week, we certainly received some reports that things are past their date, and I'm really aware that that's come at the back of a really busy time for council. So I thank the officers for bringing that information up to date for us, and for the work that they're doing to kind of implement these recommendations and make sense of them to us.
Thanks, Councillor Groom. Councillor Archibald, did you wish to speak? Nope. Any further speakers on that item? Councillor Busey?
Yeah, I've just got a question. Disclosure of interest on page 91. It says exceptional notes. Notes. One annual return was not received, and it was referred to the crime and corruption. What was that about?
Ask for an officer comment on that. Chair, that was a staff member, and there were mitigating personal circumstances, and the return was just put in late, that's all. Okay. Thank you. Anything further on that item? All right. Councillor Vusic, you might want to turn your mic off if you're finished speaking. Thank you. Councillor Archibald?
Sorry, could I just add a comment that was my understanding on that particular issue that once something is late for whatever reason, it is automatically referred to those institutions that are listed. So it's not as though there was anything untoward, it's just a process. Yep.
Thanks, that's good clarification. All right, so I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. The next item is ARMC 3. And we have an amended officer's recommendation. So I'll move the amended officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Groom. Did anyone wish to speak on that item? No? Okay, I'll put that one to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. We come to ARMC 4, Wallylup Civic Centre. So I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Groom. I believe someone wished to speak on this one.
I do. On page, just some of the inconsistencies in relation to the costs of the civic centre, and I'm having difficulty with 3 different areas and marrying them together. Let's say that there is 46.8 budget, 46.4. Let's use those figures. If you go to the monthly statement, financial statement for the 31st of January 22, the work in progress is 35.3 million. When we have a look at the meeting attachments on 157 of 213, there is an item there for capital works in progress, which basically considers as an internal risk of moderate, and also that the city is looking to improve how they report on capital works in progress. There's too much of a discrepancy for me to support this.
Okay, I might just get an officer comment on how those figures relate to each other, if that's possible. Do we have to take it on notice? I'm assuming, just to make sure we're getting the right thing, Councillor Vusic is referring to the figures on page 101 as compared to the risk reporting document, correct? Yeah, so we know what we're being asked. I'm guessing it's a time difference issue, but if there's a comment now, otherwise we can take it on notice.
Thank you, through the chair. What I would emphasise is that the financial summary that's included on page 101, it relates to the overall construction budget. That's multi-year. I suspect some of the figures that you're looking at are carry forward figures, and they relate to a financial year. So that's probably where the discrepancy is, but we can take that away and just provide some more clarity.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anything further on that one? I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Councillor Vusic against, that's carried. Lost my run sheet. Items ARMC 6. Overdue debtors. I'll move the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Groom. Did you wish to speak on this one, Councillor Groom, or was it Councillor Vusic? Or someone else entirely? Overdue debtors. Oh, yeah. Councillor Vusic?
I still struggle with 90 days plus. I really do struggle with 90 days plus and being able to have that amount of money outstanding. It's been a bugbear of mine for the last 2 years, and I just would like to see what else can be done to be able to claw back that money, and also for your reporting. 90 days plus, 120, 180, would like to see what depth there is. And I've got a question about DOME with overdue debtors. my memory serves me correctly, and this is just an example of where you have a debt that's been outstanding for a long time. Dome would have over $200,000. There was one, I think, about 3-4 months ago. I haven't had time to go back to go and check it, but Dome owes us a lot of money, don't they?
No,
No?
I don't think so. Certainly isn't in the report.
No? Okay, well, that was just a question on Dome, but I would also like I said, the 90 days plus needs to be a little bit unpacked so that we see, you know, where are our debtors in terms of time, because that overdue, 90 days is a long time. Very hard to claw that back.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to point out to Councillor Vucic that at the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, there was an amendment that was moved by Councillor Groom to request a report to come back from staff about how we are working to, or how the city is working to recover those funds, and in particular those greater than 90 days. So it's a valid concern, and it's something that the committee considered as well, and has moved that amendment to get that information back to us so that we can address it.
Got one more question, and that is summary of overdue debts. It's got a confidential attachment. We don't normally do that, do we?
All right, I might just go to Councillor Pemberton because she had the call, and maybe we'll come back to any questions that are remnant afterwards.
Thank you. Look, mine's a very minor point, and it is looking at the confidential meeting attachments. And I just wanted to give some feedback that the version I'm looking at Big Tin Can Hub is very pixelated and actually impossible to read the detail. So if we can get that kind of fixed up for next time, that'd be great.
Yeah, and look, we might be able to get a hard copy for tonight if you want to discuss anything in the confidential part of the meeting, if you need that. Sorry, so the 90 days is part of the recommendation. The report on the 90 days is part of the recommendation that we're going to vote on shortly. The question about confidential, I think it was, why is this confidential? Is that the question that you wanted to?
Yeah. Why is it confidential this time?
Okay.
Through the Mayor, we typically make this report confidential because it provides information, commercial information about a business, which is allowable under the Act.
Thank you. All right, so we'll put the officers. Oh, sorry, Councillor Green, press your button and then you come up my screen.
Well, I couldn't press my button because it kept on taking over from other people, so I kept on turning it on and off.
I don't know what to look at.
I just wanted to kind of bring a bit of the discussion that was had at committee into this debate, and draw Councillor Vusic's attention to the pie chart on page 110, which I think gave us quite a lot of comfort. What we can see there is that 30% of that over 90-day debt is actually 270 days and greater. So it is harking back to the COVID debt that was kind of accumulated by some of our tenants. And we can see that officers have actually done a quite remarkable job bringing down the rest of that debt. And particularly if we look at our 30 and 60 days, which is the normal period as we accumulate debt that we're really looking at staff to target and manage, we can see those numbers are starting to fall into what we would expect the normal realm of debt. So, you know, at committee, we acknowledged that work that's happening. And also, if you are able to read the confidential attachments at some point in time, we can also see that a lot of those debts are beginning to come down, and people are honouring the repayment claims arrangements, and we're even getting some lump sum debt. So what we've specifically asked in the amended motion is that officers come back to us with reports and recommendation for those debtors whose debt is not coming down, and the very small number whose debt is actually continuing to increase, because we're concerned that we're not setting businesses up to get deeper and deeper into debt, and at some point in time, we need to protect our own interests, but also, you know, not locking people into a negative situation. So I think you'll feel, if we can get a report that's legible, that on the whole that debt is coming in the right direction, and it is still a big number. They're unusual times, but we have certainly asked for that advice on the ones that aren't trending in the right direction.
Can I just get a comment from officers as to which committee we expect that report to go to? Because if it is an item of interest, I would recommend councillors come along to the committee discussion where we can get more deeply into the debate.
Through the mayor, I don't think the specific meeting was identified in the recommendation, but we would hope at least that that's brought back to the next Audit and Risk Committee, but it can be sooner if required.
Yep. Perhaps we could target an F poll. Thanks. Okay, so I will put the item to a vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Great. That brings us to Armc 8, the information report for February. So I'll move the officer's recommendation, get a seconder for that. Councillor Groom, any discussion on the information report? Yep, press the button. Thanks.
Just got a couple of questions. If I look at the chart on page 122, it says actions that have been completed in this reporting period is 5, and we've got actions ongoing that exceed the estimated time. I just look at those figures and they're pretty, I would just like to know why aren't we moving a lot faster in resolving our actions. And also, and that relates to, and this could be something you've already resolved, but if we have a look at the internal controls on page 155 out of 230 in the, I think it's the meeting attachments, and it's got the supply master files. That was a very significant, and it is a high risk, and it's still ongoing. Is this an accurate summary?
All right, so I think there's a general and specific question in that. If anyone's in a position to comment, or we can take it on notice about our number of actions outstanding, and then specifically the master files audit action.
I'd like to take that on notice because we will need to look at the specific tasks that are being referred to in the table, so we'll need some more information.
Well, actually, if you read that item, it's very clear what the action is, and it's still ongoing some 12 months later, and that's a really big red flag.
I couldn't find that on page 155 in the additional information. Where are you referring to?
Well, that was the other issue that's quite poorly numbered, but it's the meeting documents 155 out of 213.
So
controls.
It's Fremantle Technical College Demolition on page 155. So we use the references to the page numbers that are at the bottom of the document.
Well, I've got a number 7 here as well.
Yeah. So
I can revert. You can take that on notice, but like I said, it's pretty clear on it.
Okay. So, Matt, are you clear on what we're talking about?
Yep. Sorry if I'm being kicked out. We will take that on notice. I'll need to refer to particular officers who are responsible for those tasks to see where they're at.
Thank you. Can I just say one more thing on page 123 with the recommendation there? It includes a risk rating, not ranking. You don't rank a race,
So, is that I'm not sure if that's a correction or yeah. Okay, cool. So do we need to amend any words, or are we comfortable with the risk rating? Is that what needs to change in the recommendation? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll move minor amendment to change the word ranking to the word rating. I'll move it, seconded by Councillor Moughlin. All those in favour? Yep, so that's carried. And so we'll go back as amended to the officer's recommendation. Any further debate? Okay, all those in favour? And against? And Councillor Vusic against. Councillor Vusic, your mic is still on. Okay, that brings us to C1, Fremantle Technical College Demolition. We have an amended officer's recommendation here, and I might just get some officer comment on the origins of this small amendment, if that's okay. So I'll move it and I'll get a seconder quickly, which looks like it's Councillor Moughlin, and go to the Director of Planning.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. The applicants in their submitted documents included an arborist report which identified a large number of the existing trees on site as being retained through the demolition works. We, as officers, we'd already recommended a condition which is on the screen requiring a demolition management plan to be submitted to provide details of how the proponents would manage the impacts of the demolition works on the surrounding area and the community, which obviously covers a wide range of issues which are listed in the items A to N. But we realised late in the day it would probably be appropriate, just for completeness, to also include in that list that the management plan should require details of how they're going to protect the trees on site that they've already indicated would be retained. So it's just getting confirmation in the form of the management plan of how those trees will be protected, notwithstanding that the proponents have already identified which trees would be retained.
Thank you. All right, on this item, any comment? Councillor Moughlin.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose just to speak very quickly to this and to thank staff for bringing what was, I suppose, burning away for a very long time and became an urgent item to come to this meeting as opposed to planning committee meeting to enable the state to get on and do what needs to be done on the site, noting that it's not our decision to make, but that we are providing comments. So thanks to the staff for doing that. And also, yeah, it's disappointing that what was a functioning building was left standing there for some period of time and has got to the position that it was in, and that decisions weren't made either in the past to either utilise that building or demolish it there and then. And I understand, there's always reasons why these things don't happen, but there are a number of members of the community who struck a good balance between reputational issues in and around that area, such that they wanted to raise the concerns with the building being demolished, but also not to denigrate the area in which they were living. So they were quite concerned that in raising the risk of antisocial behaviour in and around that building, that would then create issues more so with reputation of that area, and particularly as well, we know the Heart of Beaconsfield project and other bits and pieces. So I think that line was tread quite carefully in engaging with the state, with the minister and the like, and appreciate the work that they've done in regards to that. And I really look forward to seeing this building flattened and gone, and that we're able to make a step in the right direction in Beaconsfield. And that's most probably the second time in the last month that I've said I'm happy to see a building gone, and the other one was the wool stores in Freo. I went past and I was stoked that that was gone, and equally my same sentiment on this one here.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Just a quick question, because it was sort of raised at the same time as the question about trees. Thank the officers for bringing the amended wording. The car park on the western boundary is a fairly substantial car park, and it does provide, or has typically provided, parking for market day at the college and the like, but would also, given that there's a very large site, would provide parking for any future building process that might occur there. So I'm just wondering whether we can reach out to the government to ensure that that car park isn't unnecessarily demolished. I don't imagine there's any good reason to knock it down straight away. It would also provide a bit of a buffer zone between what might just be a sandpit for quite a long time, albeit a dust protected sandpit, but by at least having a little bit of a zone that's still bitumised does help protect the neighbouring properties from that. It's also actually a walkthrough. As it currently stands, a lot of people actually walk through that area, presumably to get to the college, but I know I've walked through there to get door knocking, but also just to permeate through the suburb. And if it turns into just a building site, a fenced off dust bowl, then people won't be able to necessarily do that. So I'm not sure if you could tolerate a minor amendment. I did sort of ask, in a sense, whether that was an opportunity could be thrown in the list. I'm not sure where it would belong, but it hasn't been put in the officer's amended motion. So I might seek some guidance.
Yeah. I think it would be good to get some officer comment. I mean, I think looking at the aerial photographs of that car park, if you're retaining the on-site trees, you're going to have a job actually trying to not retain that car park, given the number of the trees that are in that car park. So I do wonder if we might have protected it by protecting the trees, but perhaps the director can give us some guidance on how or if we need to do that.
Through you, Mayor. Firstly, my apologies. I wasn't aware that Councillor Sullivan had raised that issue, so hence it's why it wasn't in the wording we put forward tonight. I guess thinking quickly, there's two options. I mean, we could either do this administratively and simply raise it with the proponents. We obviously have quite a good working relationship with Development WA, and we've had a lot of dialogue with them over the application. We could raise it administratively. If council would prefer it to be in the resolution that becomes the formal advice to the Planning Commission, so it's either something that gets included as a condition as something the demolition plan should show, or a standalone point. I mean, I think it could be added as an additional point that could just say something like arrangements to retain the car park along the western boundary for public use during the demolition period.
The CEO has actually, acting CEO has come up with a suggestion to amend B in the list there, which could reflect the, I don't want to speak for you, but does your microphone work?
I guess my only comment to that, Mayor, would be that that's meant to be talking specifically to infrastructure within the road reserve, whereas technically that car park is part of the property, it's not within the road reserve, it's within the site boundary. So that might be, confusing to the applicants if it's mixed in with that one, but it probably could be, but I just think maybe as a separate point is perhaps clearer. So certainly I from an officer point of view, got no objection if a minor amendment added a point P that says words to the effect of what I just said. Can't remember now.
Councillor Sullivan, do you want to move that way?
Absolutely. I mean, it might just be sort of P opportunity to maintain the western car park.
Yep.
Okay. Simple as that. Everyone knows what we're talking about.
Yep. Western car park.
Sorry? To maintain. Retain. Well, yeah.
You're asking a lot now. All right, we'll just get some words up there.
The interim retention of the western car park.
Look, just on this one, while we're getting the words up there, our understanding is that the state government are hoping to move quickly enough to get this demolished during school holidays. Whether they're able to do that or not is another question, but we were fairly keen not to be the stumbling block for that project, because obviously with asbestos removal and other things, they're pretty keen to do that while school is not in term. How's that look? Details of the interim retention of the car park. Sorry? Oh. Yeah. So it's the interim retention of the car park along the western side site boundary. Okay, seconder, Councillor Moughlin. Any debate? All those in favour? Back to the item as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Great, unanimous. Where does that bring us to? See item 2. So I'll move the officer's recommendation for the monthly financial report, seconded by someone, I hope. Councillor Archibald. Someone wish to speak on this one? Councillor Vusick.
Thank you. Page 134. I'm not sure what this table, the head of that table, really means. Net current assets at the start of the financial year, 11.337 million. Is this supposed to read operating surplus? Because if I go back to page 132, operating surplus, you've got 11.34 million here and the variance. It's a big difference.
Can we get some officer comment on that one? Might be the carry forward.
Through the Mayor, so that figure you're referring to is the carry forward funds from the previous financial year. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Well, not really. So why have you got net current assets at the start of the financial year? I'm assuming that is relating to opening surplus because it follows through on the figures.
So the acting CEO is saying that's correct.
Okay. On the in the meeting attachment statement of financial position, if we had a look at 31st of December 2021, you have 8.9 million at the end of reporting net result year to date, 30th of June 2021. When I have a look at the statement that's reported here, 31st of February, it's got a net result of 10,543,195. What's the reason for the 1.5 odd variance?
Through the Mayor, can you clarify where exactly in the report you're referring to?
In the attachments, the meeting attachments, the statement of financial position.
What page are we on? 5. That one or? Hello?
Through the chair, so we're just clarifying that the net result from last month to this month has changed by 1.5 million. Is that the query? So my understanding is we have had a completed audit change as a result of the audit for the Southern Metropolitan Regional Council being completed, and there was an adjustment to our balance sheet of approximately 1.5 million, and that'll be brought forward next month when we bring forward the annual financial statements.
Okay. Sounds like good news. Councillor Archibald.
Thank you. I just wanted to suggest that when we have detailed questions that relate to attachments, it would be really helpful if it could be sent in, because flicking from the agenda to the attachment, particularly if the attachments are online, it's really difficult to do that. So that we can all understand what the questions are, it'd be better if we could get it in writing first, or just a text or an email prior to the meeting, so we can see them. And it also means the staff can look it up before the meeting and have an answer for you. Yep.
Thanks, Councillor Archibald. I'll put that one to a vote. If there's no further discussion, all those in favour and against? Councillor Vusick against. That's going to bring us to the end of the non-confidential agenda, because we have no motions of which previous notice has been given, no urgent business, and no late items of which I am aware. This means that we will go behind closed doors to consider the confidential items, and the recording and live streaming of the meeting will cease. Given this is the first time that we've done this, I'm going to suggest we take a 5-minute adjournment, can't get that word out, to do that, so that we reconvene at 8:20. So, see you. No, we're going to have an adjournment and then move it, I think. I don't know. You have to move an adjournment. Just call. Yeah. Cool. Or do I need to move it to end the live streaming? Is that what you're saying? That's what Kayla's saying with her face. Come back a minute. All right, I'm going to move that we go behind closed doors, seconded by someone. Councillor Groom. All those in favour? Okay, and now we'll call a 5-minute adjournment.